Welcome to week 2 of Immunity for the Community, offered by Health by Design, where our founder, Dorothy Richards, and our team members, Dr. Patricia Smith, Dr. Henry Pearson, Dr. Lynch, and myself, Dr. Sankey, we welcome you. We are so excited to share with you some important information, how you can boost your immunity so that you can have a much stronger immune system. Today, Dr. Lynch is going to share with us his journey on this optimum health. Welcome, Dr. Lynch.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sankey. I am delighted to be here on behalf of Health by Design. And as you know, we are in the midst of a pandemic. And what better time is there than now for us to find out how we might improve our healing system and how we might boost our immunity for the community. We're going to pick up this week where we left off last week. We started out with 8 Weeks to Optimum Health by Andrew Weil, and it's a natural healing book that leads us to making good decisions, better decisions as to how we can improve our health through lifestyle medicine. And this week, we're going to start the same way that we started with last week. There's always going to be a project. We're going to highlight some aspect of diet. We'll talk about important supplements. We will recognize the value of exercise, breathing, and something in the psycho-spiritual dimension, which I would say mental or spiritual. So this week, we are going to ask you to find out where your drinking water comes from and what the source of that water might be and what impurities might be in that water. Ultimately, we're going to recommend that all of us will need to have some type of a filtration system to ensure safety of our water, which is so crucial to our bodies. We're also going to talk about diet. And last week, we started on the importance of omega-3, which is found in fish. We talked about broccoli. This week, we're going to continue on with whole grains. What is the value of whole grains? What is the value of soybean products? We will touch on to the benefits of green tea. As far as supplements are concerned, last week it was vitamin C. This week we'll talk about the mixed carotenes, and I think you'll appreciate the pathway that we're going to be taking. So let's start out talking about water. And most of us would recognize that water can come from some rather dangerous sources. And as you look at some of these pictures, you realize that industry and agriculture and other commercial marine contributions may actually be poisoning our water, and there can be coliform and bacteria from fecal sources that could also contaminate our bodies. And so we need to know that our water is clean and pure. So some of the examples of where these pollutants come from are factories and refineries. And from agriculture, this is where pesticides, fertilizers, and things like phosphorus and nitrogen, that's what we talk about in eutrophication. Sometimes there's human sewage, there's marine dumping, mining, and household chemicals can be released into the water supply. And there may not always be mechanisms to clear everything from the water. So we have to take very special precautions, particularly when the items are non-biodegradable, and that would represent plastic. And some of you know that there are huge amounts of plastic bottles out in the oceans. What are the human health effects of having polluted water? May come to you clinically by having rashes that you cannot explain. Sometimes there's stomach or liver problems, breathing problems, neurologic issues, reproductive risks. And even cancer can come as a result of taking in polluted, impure water. While we're at it, let's also recognize that air pollution and soil pollution are also very much a part of the environmental picture, and why it's so necessary to have a understanding of the ecosystem and how these things all interrelate to our health, but the health of the environment as well. Are there any comments about water and any thoughts other than the fact that we probably need to find ways of utilizing appropriate types of filters? And I'm not going to go into any great details about what systems are best, but there's quite a variety. But any thoughts or any comments as we leave the subject of water and checking up on the source of your water right through the internet?
You know, I think some of the challenges, there are so many different types of water that is sold in the stores. And so to know which one may or may not be, I'm going to use more harmful, or the healthiest for us can be difficult. So I think that, you know, having a filter in the home is certainly probably one of the best options. But if that is not possible, you know, how does someone really choose the best water?
You're right. And we're talking about bottled water, we're talking about alkaline water, there's spring water, there's magnetic water. There is quite a variety of waters, but the point is for now, it should be as clean and as pure as possible. And if you have to get a simple filtration system, do so. And of course, the filters have to be changed on a regular basis. Otherwise, your filter may be contributing. So this is just an important aspect because our bodies are made up of 70% water, and if that water is tainted and poisonous, it is going to damage our well-being. We will come back to the issue of good, better, and best filters in the future. We're going to follow up on the discussion that we had on fish. And not everybody's a fish lover. Not everybody is able to appreciate fish. I always remember that Jesus ate fish. I recall that on a couple of occasions, he fed people with fish. And so maybe there is some saving grace if the fish is found from wild sources, from Alaska or cold water fish. And so the omega-3s have antioxidants. There's a decent quality of proteins that provide the amino acids that we need. And it has been known that it provides heart health, which would help to reduce stroke, diabetes, and absolutely to boost the immune system. But these anti-inflammatory ingredients in fish also would help with inflammation connected to arthritis or Crohn's disease and other skin conditions. Some have not appreciated that it is also useful for certain mental disorders. And so we have heard that fish represents brain food. So let's appreciate that perhaps after considering the benefits of chicken or beef, we ought to consider that fish could represent something important. Notwithstanding that, mercury and other poisons also have to be factored into that equation. And when we talk about these omega-3s, there are some words that we need to hear about, and these include EPA and DHA, as well as ALA. But the EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid, is found in fatty cold water fish, and it's recognized for the benefits of the cardiovascular system, whereas the DHA, or docosahexaenoic acid, is more supportive to the brain and the vision, particularly of children as they are growing. If they don't have these elements in their foods, there may be inadequate development of their brain and vision systems. The ALA is a reminder that we can get some of these ingredients through flaxseed, although the process may be a little bit less efficient, but it still represents an opportunity to get these very important fats in our dietary plans. For those who seek to be vegetarian, there are options that don't necessarily include eating fish, but eating flaxseed, or you can ground flaxseed as well, and soybeans. And then once again, the proven benefits: you want to treat depression, heart attacks, asthma. Over the years of practice, I have seen that many children who have reactive airway disease or asthma just so happen not to like fish. And so without that in their bodies, they stand more prone to having these asthmatic attacks. Next, we're going to look into whole foods and whole grains. And this is a very important subject matter. And right off the top, you can see the difference between the whole grain and the refined grains that we use. The whole grain will contain the bran, it will contain certain B vitamins and minerals, and also the germ, which also contains certain fats, certain phytochemicals, but also the B vitamins as well as E. But when you're talking about the refined grain, you're not getting the bran or the germ. You're simply getting the starchy carbohydrates, and so you're missing out on some of the fiber, and the body does not do as well. Now, the other controversy that I discovered looking into whole grain is that many of the whole grains are now genetically modified, Jennifer. And when we're using genetically modified ingredients, we're not getting the full God-given blessings of the nutrient-dense package that God created for us. And our systems then have to negotiate, how do we handle this genetic modification? Some of these modifications happen because the farmers want to have grain that are more resistant to pests, or resistant to temperature changes, or to have some other feature, but those features may not work hand in hand with us. So I would have to say that we want to, as much as possible, seek out organic instead of the genetically modified brand. So some of the examples of whole grains would include whole wheat bread, oats, quinoa, brown rice, whole grain pasta, and even popcorn would fit on that list. And we would also suggest that 100% stone ground whole wheat would be useful to make bread, brownies, muffins, cookies, pancakes, rolls. And you have to seek this out. You may have to go to your Whole Foods, or you may have to go to special sections in Publix to find the varieties of more healthy baking flours. There are certain types of breads, the Ezekiel bread, some of us have heard of, but I've also heard that sprouted multi-grain, as long as it's not genetically modified, can give us more of the nutrients that we need. Do you have any thoughts or any considerations about whole grains and any mythology or any misgivings about these types of breads?
Well, you know, the one thing that I've heard about wheat, it can cause leaky gut and different things of that nature. And I don't know exactly how, founded that was, but I've heard that story. But I think what I'm hearing you say is really important for us to read the label of the ingredients, and make sure that we have natural items and it's not genetically modified. And so I think that would be probably my takeaway, is read the label so that I'll know what's in the bread or what's in the item that I'm eating, because it's very possible that people that are having those abdominal issues or stomach issues, it could be because those items are genetically modified, and it has pesticides and things that are not working well with the God-given, system.
Yeah, well, you mentioned a very special term, the leaky gut. And of course, there are individuals that suffer from celiac disease where they have to avoid rye and oats and wheat. And if they don't, they can become extremely ill. And so they have to wind up going on a gluten-free program. So I do think that the sprouted organic is apparently the best options. But there are books written about the wheat belly. If you look at most commonly processed foods, it is a shock to see how many foods start out with wheat, and that wheat in most cases are probably man-made, so to speak. So as we conclude this area, we want to suggest that we want to avoid GMO. We want to and if we get organic, we're going to avoid the synthetic pesticides that have been linked to certain types of blood cancers like lymphoma, leukemia. We want to avoid the herbicides like Roundup that are definitely linked to big time problems. There's more antibiotics in the GMO foods. And so, yes, organic is a little bit more expensive, but if you can minimize the number of herbicides and pesticides and antibiotics in your system, I think we're doing ourselves a great favor. And I think that that makes it more cost effective. The next area we're going to look into is the benefits of green tea. And before I delve into that, let me ask you, Dr. Sankey, is it your habit to start your day with something warm or something hot? Do you have any attraction to putting something in your system in the mornings?
I am not consistent with that. Many times if I put anything warm in, I'll actually do a lemon or a lime, with warm water and maybe a little honey or something like that. But teas, I don't do a lot of teas. But I mean, like I said, I'm not consistent even with my lemon water and my lime water. But I do know that when I drink teas or anything warm, it does have that little comfort feeling. So it is, somewhat of an American or even just tradition of individuals around the world that they start either with some type of tea or soup or something warm. But I'm not consistent, so I'm probably not the best person to ask.
Well, the statistics have shown that certain Asian communities that drink tea in the morning, they may have a greater longevity, and certain teas have been associated with certain health benefits. Certainly among Americans, there's a great number that will drink coffee, but universally, I think people like to get that comfort of something warm or hot in the morning to kind of clear the system and hydrate. Well, green tea has been found to have certain benefits from regulating blood pressure, helping the heart, reducing the risk of diabetes. Some will claim relief of pain and inflammation, reducing the risk of cancer, boosting brain function. Promoting dental health was a new one. I knew about some of the other benefits, but I didn't know that there was some value. And that promotion of dental health also apparently has to do with improving the breath. Sometimes our breath can be somewhat hostile in the mornings, but green tea has been found to offer some benefit. And losing weight has also been another dramatic claim that people have made. So green tea has benefits to the heart because it can lower LDL, that's the bad cholesterol. It can boost the energy levels. It does have certain flavonoids and catechins, which are a special variety of phytochemicals that enhance the immune system. Brain health has been found to be affected, and protecting certain organs of the body. So I think that it's something worth exploring, worth investigating to see if there may be some benefits for you or for I. We would next move on to the value of carotenoids. And the carotenoids sort of bring up the vegetables that have a yellow orange type of a color. That could be squash, carrots, there could be persimmons, but universally, these carotenoids seem to have value for several of our systems, from helping us with cancer to metabolic conditions like diabetes and elevations in our lipids, to the skin or to the eyes. And so some of the value of the carotenoids will help macular degeneration and cataracts. And I think there's a slide that will come up a little later on that will address these carotenoids. And so the carotenoids are important because they provide vitamin A, and vitamin A is important to the lining of the mouth and the respiratory tract. And this is where it represents a lining or a barrier to for our protection. So if things get into our system, if that vitamin A material is there in sufficient quantity, it makes it harder for us to become infected, or for the skin membranes to break down. Next, we're gonna touch on to soybean, and this sort of is a reflection of an earlier conversation that we were having about fish, and the fact that most of us are coming to realization that red meats and chicken and certainly pork are not in our best interest. So how then can we ensure getting adequate protein from a plant-based avenue? And so hence the soybeans. And I should hasten to say that the soybeans, once again, should not be genetically modified, and that may be difficult. But soybeans will help us in preventing cancer. It will help with certain menopausal symptoms. It will help bone health, circulation, controlling blood sugar because of the fiber. It will boost the digestive health, helps to boost heart, and also will help you with healthy weight gain. Do you have much experience with soybean related products, and would you have any comment about that?
You know, I actually, having been raised as a vegetarian, or my parents gave us only, vegetarian foods, soybean is very familiar to me, and I absolutely enjoy soybeans. I enjoy soybean products, but I have to be mindful because sometimes I get I just enjoy it so much that maybe I overeat it. But I do know that there's a lot of benefits, and the ones that you brought out today, I didn't know that it prevents birth defects. That was actually a new one on me. I didn't know that. But some of the other ones that you mentioned, I had heard of before. But yes, I absolutely enjoy the soybean. But I think the key message here is to make sure that it's not genetically modified. Again, it needs to be organic.
Right. So many of us are looking for ways of cleaning up our diet. And I would have to believe that this is one of the better ways that we can, in a long term, improve our immunity. So the health benefits, once again, of soybean, good for the skin, the heart, the bones, hot flushes, and maybe even good for the brain. And I don't know if you are skilled at preparing soybean products. I have to assume that you might very well be. But if we can learn how to prepare certain products. I think in the next week, we're going to talk about some of the menus, some of the actual meals that can be prepared. And I think it will be very striking and very shocking that you can turn soybean into meat-like products. And if you have good seasoning
Yes.
under control, you can actually reproduce the taste of many, many meats. This slide came out of order, but this is just a reminder of some of the important carotenoids that we mentioned before. The lutein, good for the eyes, the alpha carotene, it's good general, beta carotene, lycopene is of value for men with prostate concerns or if they are wanting to protect the prostate. And lycopene can be found in tomato paste types of products. They can actually be cooked and still have a benefit. The zeaxanthin is also good for the eyes. So these carotenoids should first be taken by food, but many of us know how difficult it is to get the 7 to 10 fruits and vegetables a day that is now recommended for powerful health. So if we have to take them as a supplement, there is good reason to look for these essential carotenoids, which can be found, by the way, in these foods. Can you identify some of these items for me?
That looks like that butternut squash and our carrots and look like there's lemon, lime, tangerines, mandarins. There's some spices down there in the in those little containers. I can't identify all of them. It almost looks
Right,
like
right.
a ginger.
I think I see some turmeric as well.
Turmeric is good. Yeah, turmeric. I like turmeric. I like to put it in my rice. I put it in my tofu. There's a lot of recipes that I use turmeric in.
And I see some sweet potato and the persimmons.
I like
And I know we're sort of flip-flopping, but these are where the carotenoids are. And I should help our visitors know that we ought to eat like the rainbow. And with as many colors as exist in the rainbow, there are foods that God has created that also have those brilliant blues and purples and orange and yellows and reds. And so each of those contain very wonderful ingredients. Now I have before you this prefrontal cortex, which is the executive suite of the brain, and also this amygdala, which represents where and how we hold certain memories. And it's important to appreciate that we have to guard the avenues of the mind and the brain and the soul. And so part of this week, the recommendation is to be thoughtful about the news that we listen to or the news that we watch. There's a lot of excitement, Dr. Sankey, as we have less than 3 weeks to a brand new election. We have politicians who are always in front of us. We have judges that are running for position. We have issues with the fires in California pertaining to climate change. We have COVID-19. There is a number of different issues that circulate around us. And what is the impact when we are constantly looking at bad news? And so could it be that it would be a good idea to take some breaks from watching the news? And this becomes rather difficult because years ago we would say, well, maybe you ought to stop watching TV. But now with news flashing so quickly across your phone, it becomes very difficult. Even if you say, well, I'm going to just look at Facebook, you're still going to get news stories. And so this may be a call to getting away from some of the technology that is causing us to have even more stress and more adrenal fatigue. And I won't get into adrenal fatigue except to say that many of us can be exhausted by continuous bad news and set us up for a nervous breakdown. And so we've got to untie ourselves from technology, if we want and expect to have a balanced state of mind, body, and spirit, we sometimes just need to take a rest, to take a break, and unchain ourselves. There was a song by Dionne Warwick years ago, Unchained, and so we have got to get unchained. So news is sometimes bad for your health, and we've got to recognize that very much. As we come close to conclusion, we're just asking you to increase your exercise at least 20 minutes a day. Last week it was 10 minutes. This week, 20 minutes. And some of you are even doing more than that. But by stretching and by learning flexibility, you improve your health, your muscles, your appetite is improved, your social life is enhanced, you feel more relaxed, you have more energy, and you actually look better as a result of continuous exercise. And let's get in at least 20 to 30 minutes a day. As we get to the end of the program, perhaps we'll be at an hour plus a day of exercise, which is really not a punishment, but a privilege. And because we're going to improve our heart, our metabolism, our hormones, our neurologic system, skeletal system. Many of us are suffering from weak bones and weak muscles. And even in our 60s, 70s, and 50s, we need to remain vital and vigorous. And it's going to happen by making some of these improved changes in our lifestyle, especially exercise. And with that, the deep breathing, the important diaphragmatic breathing that helps to take us into more relaxed states. I think that this pretty much concludes this second week. And these are reminders to some. They could be new information to others, but the entire emphasis is how can we improve our lifestyle by making better and informed choices. I'm going to ask you to just highlight a couple of the points that you'd like our listeners to walk away with today, Dr. Sankey.
So, Dr. Lynch, you've been so kind to share with us where our water comes from that we need to know, and that we need to know how to add the omega-3s to our diet, whether it's through fish or flaxseed. We also learned that we need to choose the best wheat, and it's important that we don't get the refined wheat or the white wheat or things that have been bleached. You also told us about how it is important to listen, I'm going to say, to good news and turn off the bad news, how we need to really disconnect, and also the importance of exercise as it relates to how we revitalize the body, and how all of these affect our mind, our body, and our spirit. And mainly, we've been talking about how it does boost our immunity. I found it really interesting when you talked about the news, how it causes stress. And we know that stress breaks down the immunity. It compromises our immunity, our immune system. And so I really appreciate you sharing those with us, Dr. Lynch, because really what we want to do is we want to improve our health. We want to make sure that we prevent diseases. We want to see how we can prolong our lives. And if we have already gotten some of these diseases, how do we necessarily manage them better? So I really thank you for sharing with us today. Week 2 has been really, really interesting. And you know, I have a few questions that came in while you were talking. One of the questions was, can someone drink too much water?
Yes, I think that there are stories of being overly hydrated, and generally it can happen because there is some compromise to the system to begin with, and perhaps the kidneys were not as strong as they should have been. I think that's generally not the case. Most of America is underhydrated, and there are ways of seeing life from the point of view of how hydrated we are. So my daughter just had a baby 2 days ago, and the baby was living in almost 100% fluid, amniotic fluid. And when that baby was born, God forbid that that baby would have dropped. The baby would probably have bounced because it had about 80% water. But now, grandpa and grandma, if they were to fall, they wouldn't bounce, they would break like a pretzel.
Mhm.
And so life can be looked at as a state of what is the state of hydration. And I'm just glad that that's generally not the issue of drinking too much water. The issue is generally, are you drinking adequate amounts of fluid? So I'm going to not worry about that and not think that that's one of the leading causes of death, drinking too much water.
Well, I think I had to ask that question because there's sometimes that people analyze so much and they say, well, the water's not good. I don't want to drink it. I don't like the way it tastes. And so we want to make sure that our audience realizes until you get that filter, until you get that, know exactly the quality of the water you're drinking, that continue to take in water so that your body can be well hydrated. Many times we think of the body, I think of the body sometimes, especially the brain, as a grape. It has a lot of water in it. But if it's dehydrated, it looks like a raisin, so it's very tight. And so we want our brains and our body to be well hydrated. One last question that came in is, how do you know the quality of supplements? Because you mentioned that there's some vitamins we can get through foods, but sometimes we have to supplement them with maybe a pill or a capsule or something like that. But how do we know if that capsule has the quality of supplements that we need?
That's important, Dr. Sankey, and there is no substitute for the research that would be necessary to understand where those vitamins are being produced and what the criteria might be of, of the standards of the companies that are producing it, because not every vitamin that we see in GNC or Costco or anywhere would necessarily have the highest quality. So you may need some guidance, but I look at the supplements as insurance, and obviously it'd be great. Adam and Eve probably definitely did not have any vitamins in their back pockets. And why would they? Because they had access to fresh foods of numerous varieties. And unfortunately, because of the pace of life, we're not getting, as I said, those 7 to 10 fruits and vegetables that would perhaps supply all of the necessary ingredients. So it represents additional health insurance to know that adequate amounts of supplements are in the system. So thank you for that question. And it does take a little bit of work to know, to feel more confident that you're getting the best in terms of your supplementation program.
So as we're getting ready to close out our program, I'm going to have you stop sharing your screen just for a moment as I give these final thoughts from Health by Design. It is our prayer and our hope that the message that you heard today will actually have enhanced your life, enriched your life, help you on your journey to actually in strengthening your immune system. So Dr. Lynch, I want to say thank you for sharing this vital information with us today. It is a journey that we want to continue on. And so we're asking our audience to continue to follow us week by week. Implement maybe one or two things that have been talked about today from the notes that you've taken. Then you can add on and add a few more things. And so, Dr. Lynch, if you'll stop sharing your screen just for a moment.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a way that that can happen.
And that's okay. We'll go ahead and close out. And so what you need to know is that Health by Design is concerned about your health. We're concerned about your immunity, and we're concerned about our community. And so the important things that we want to take away today is that water is good for you, but you want to have the best quality of water. Omega-3s are necessary for the body to function well. And also choose your best wheat and make sure you listen to good news. And then lastly, remember to exercise. And one more thing, don't forget to bring those flowers into the home, into the nature. The Bible says, beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. We pray that this week and in the days ahead that your soul will prosper by making healthy lifestyle choices. Until next time, be blessed.
Thank you.